Along the 19-mile Verdun front, the Germans fired 1 million shells, with most of them being concentrated on the east bank of the Meuse River. 26 artillery guns fired on forts such as Fort Vaux and Dormont. The Germans tricked French survivors into coming out of hiding by halting gunfire at midday. On the 21st of February, 4 p.m., the Germans attacked with their flamethrowers and stormtroopers following right behind them. The French defenders engaged the Germans, yet the Germans only suffered 600 casualties. By the next day, Germans had already advanced 3.1 miles into Verdun, forcing the French to retreat to Sommognex, Belmont, and Ornes. Many were killed, and only 118 of the chasseurs managed to escape. This was a clash that made the French High Command realize that this was no ordinary attack. The Germans also managed to take the village of Haumont. However, the French managed to repulse an attempt by the Germans to take the village of Bois-de-l'Herbois. Then on the 23rd of February, Germans repulsed the French attempt to retake Bois-de-Corrèze. The fight for Bois-de-l'Herbois raged on until Germans outflanked the French. While the Germans wanted to inflict as many casualties as possible while sustaining very few, they soon found themselves losing colossal amounts of troops. The Germans then captured Bois-de-Fosses and Bois-de-Scarius while closing in on the town of Hassold, which led to the largest fort, Fort Delmont. At 3 p.m. on the 25th of February, the Germans attacked French positions in the woods with machine gun support, aiming to take as many prisoners as possible. The French forces faced defeat and were forced to flee to Delmont village. The Germans pursued the French until fired upon by a machine gunner in the Delmont church. The Germans took cover and proceeded to bombard the area. Yet troops stationed in the area refused to believe the Germans were only a few hundred meters away from the fort. Some of the Germans have formed into parties and headed for the fort, not knowing that most of the Verdun forts had been unarmed, and the garrison of the fort was just a small maintenance crew led by a warrant officer. Not nothing, but certainly not an army capable of defeating professional German troops. As French machine gun fire ceased, one of the parties, consisting of 100 or so men, slowly began to cut the barbed wire around the fort. The Germans had also sent a flare, but the main German army did not see it. Unfortunately for the Germans, the French did. The Germans managed to slip past the fort before the French resumed firing, and they entered the fort using one of the unmanned bunkers. Inside the fort, the Germans made their way to the bottom level and found 57 men with their leader, taking them all prisoner and capturing the fort. The French then made a failed attempt to retake Delmont and were ordered to heavily resupply the forts they still had control of. On the 27th of February, the rain thundered down harder than ever, turning the front into a swampland and leaving many German artillery pieces stranded in the mud. As well as that, French reinforcements had started to arrive. The unexpectedly high loss of life was also a problem, with the French losing 24,000 lives at this stage and the Germans losing 25,000 lives. The 500 deaths from fighting around Delmont that day only made it worse, and morale for Germany was low. The rain delay gave French time to gather 90,000 reinforcement soldiers to reinforce the area. The Germans advanced unknowingly into a range of French artillery, which tore soldiers to shreds. The German general had doubts on whether to cancel the operation or continue to reinforce it. He made the decision to continue the offensive, and the Germans soon came up with a plan to counter the French artillery. After a week, the Germans realized that French artillery was still firing on the east bank. It seemed that they had reached the turning point of the battle. Rather than large offensives, the Germans attacked with small numbers and almost no objective. On the 14th of March, Germans attacked and captured the point known as Côte 265, but the French managed to hold Côte 295. At this stage, the French artillery had fired 13,000 mortar rounds. So on the 20th of March, the Germans captured Bois d'Avocourt and Bois de Malancourt. Then on the 22nd of March, after a 2-day halt in the attack, the Germans attacked Termite Hill. However, large amounts of artillery repulsed the attack. Then on the 5th of April, the village of Harcourt fell, and on the 8th of April, Bethencourt fell. As March turned to April, the German casualties from Verdun were a shocking 81,000, and if you thought that was bad, just wait for the hundreds of thousands of casualties that would come in the following months.
I'm lost in the void of darkness.